Namo Buddhaya, Namo Ratanataya. So, good evening and greetings to all Venerable Sangha, Venerable Bhikkhunis, here at Dhammadrini Monastery and also at our Aranya Bodhi Hermitage on the Sonoma Coast, and to our seminaries. And although I don't see those who are in their intensive, secluded personal retreat time, then also thoughts of them and blessings to them, and also our Anagarikas and Nekama, all who've joined for our winter retreat this year from near and far. So here beneath Sonoma Mountain in the San Francisco North Bay in the Petaluma Valley, it is the half moon night, also known as the last quarter, February. So 1 week or the 8th day after the Magha full moon. And we're having a special Uposatha night program for the half moon, Atthāmī or Ashtami, which means the 8th, the Uposatha day of the 8th. So as I mentioned earlier, then there are, in fact, normally 4 Uposatha days of the month, the full moon and new moon, and then also the half moons or the lunar quarters. And our Uposatha program so far has just been with full moon and with new moon. But we're offering this special Uposatha as Paṭipatti Puja, which means when we offer the gift of our practice. This is done traditionally, in my experience in Southeast Asian Buddhism, particularly in my time in Thailand, for those who are revered teachers, mentors, exemplars, Kalyanamittas. People will do this also for the Buddha himself, that is, undertake retreat around the time of Vesak or another important day, or even sometimes temporarily ordain. There's quite a tradition of that. And then offer their practice during that time. So there are many kinds of puja, and puja means to honor. Also, we sometimes say for our chanting, then we'll call this puja as well. And the Buddha himself, when his foster mother, Mahapajapati Gotami Therī, passed away at a great old age, according to the Pali text, then puja is the word that's used for the Buddha himself in honoring his foster mother, his maternal aunt, who was his nurse mother, who was present for her cremation, and then gave eulogy after her cremation, when she had passed away, not only for her, but for a very large group of those who were the founding community of Bhikkhunis in the Buddha's Sangha. So we understand from the Parinibbāna Sutta, which we call the discourse on the Buddha's great final passing, that the Buddha intended and voiced his intention, or you could say his vision or his mission statement, to have a fourfold community, bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas, and upasikas, even from before he began to teach, after his Mahasambodhi, or his great and complete or perfect enlightenment, complete awakening experience. So the time of the founding of the Bhikkhuni Sangha then was in a way a step towards the fulfillment of that vision, that mission statement of the Buddha before he began teaching, but not completely. Because in fact, in that vision or mission statement, it wasn't just to have a fourfold community that included bhikkhunis, but for all four folds, for them to be knowledgeable and experienced in the teaching and in the practice and its fruits. And then also capable, if there are any doubts or questions that arise with regards to the teaching, the practice, and its fruits, and someone says something that's not true or incorrect, capable to refute that wrong view. So these factors are abbreviation of the list of factors that the Buddha himself is said to have or recorded to have mentioned as the criteria of his heirs in whom he entrusted his sasana, which means his teaching and his dispensation. So this is important because then is actually at the time of the Nibbāna of the first bhikkhuni, and then of the members of the Bhikkhuni Sangha, when there's the Sangha that had realized and had experienced Nibbāna in their life, that is the path and fruits completely becoming arahantas. And this is the time that Buddha's mission could be said to be fulfilled with regards to the bhikkhunis. So at one point in one sutta, then the Buddha mentions he's asked about his sasana and ways in which he himself considered it to be not deficient. And this is one of the criteria then at that time, which must have been quite early on. In fact, then he said that he had more than 500 bhikkhuni disciples who had become arahantas. So this is part of the Buddha's own criteria, his own criteria himself for the success with regards to his noble intentions and aims, I'd say mission. Vision and mission with regards to his sasana. And we can see in those qualifications then how this is meant also to be able to pass down these traditions in both theory and in practice as well as in fruit within the Buddhist communities and within the world for a long time. As I say in the time of the Sanghadana offering, amhakang tigaratang hitaya sukhaya, which means for our long-term benefit and the happiness that it gives us. So this half moon is Nibbāna anniversary. It's actually the anniversary of the Nibbāna of another of the Buddha's disciples, according to what's been passed down in the Pali text commentaries, Maha. This is his Nibbāna anniversary. In this case, this is Nibbāna during life. And in the case of Mahapajapati Gotami Therī and those larger number of bhikkhunis, then they realized Nibbāna earlier on during life as well. For Mahapajapati Gotami, it's said to be 7 days or 1 week after her ordination, and then others in her community successively, progressively, a few days after that. So then she would have already been an arahanta from age 80 when she entered into the monastic life, all the way up to age 120. So quite elderly. I read recently that the oldest person in Sonoma County is a grandmother who is 113 years old, who's alive here in Sonoma County right now. So, rare, but happens quite often or pretty regularly also, even up to 120 or even more. than that. So for the Parinibbana, then this is said to be the first Nibbāna in this lifetime, is the Nibbāna with remainder. And that remainder means they still have a body. And with the body comes the things of the body. So there is that remainder karma with regards to the body, although they have realized complete awakening. But Parinibbāna, or final Nibbāna, we say is at the time, although it's said to be not correct to say the time of death for arahants, but in ordinary terms, we would say the time of death. But this is called Nibbāna, without remainder, which means no more body remaining. So the what's called dukkha, kaya dukkha that just comes with having a body, that's just that is called just first arrow dukkha only. No second arrow dukkha emotionalism adding on to that, but just what comes with having a body itself, just that level. But then also that dukkha ceases with Parinibbāna. This is what's traditionally said. So I felt inspired to offer this special half-moon Uposatha in honor of these great arahants, and particularly of Mahapajapati Gotami Therī and the courageous 500 founding mothers of our Bhikkhuni Sangha. And so I chose the title for this evening for our meditation and Dhamma sharing of Nibbānasantike, which means in the presence of Nibbāna. And I'd like to, after some time of meditation, then I'd like to share some thoughts on Dhamma with regards to the Mahapajapati Gotami Therī Gatha, and Therī Apadana in light of the Satipatthana practice. If it weren't for our winter retreat, maybe I'd like to do something more glorious or active. But this is a way that we can honor, that we can offer the puja in the midst of the winter retreat, just of our meditation, our listening to the Dhamma, our contemplation of the Dhamma, our Dhamma discussion together. And that can be offered with our hearts of reverence and love, appreciation, honor. And we think also that it's virtuous to do so, to cultivate these qualities for ourselves, and then also to think about sharing the blessings and merits with others. And when we involve or we think about the merit of arahants, whether Samma Sambuddha, Pacceka Buddha, or Sāvaka Buddhas, means the disciples or the Buddhas, that brings in an incredible, enormous merit for ourselves and in what we're sharing through this contemplation. So our title today is inspired by one of the deeply meaningful stanzas in the Dhammapada, which has often been repeated by another of our Kalyanamittas, who we call Banteji. That is the Most Venerable Hanapola Gunaratana Nayaka Mahatero. We arrived in the US the same day. For me, it was my birthday. He's a little, not much older. So this is verse 372 of the Dhammapada, which Banteji used to recite so regularly. And in my time at the Bhavana Society, then he seemed like he was mentioning this every day or even several times a day. The verse goes, Nati janang apanyasa panyanati ajayato yang hi janangcha panyacha save Nibbānasantike, which means there is no jhana without panya, wisdom, There is no panya, wisdom, without jhana. One who has jhana and wisdom, they are in the vicinity. This is translated as vicinity, but in the vicinity of Nibbāna. This quote is attributed to the Buddha, Dhammapada, verse 372. And for us, practicing Satipatthana, bearing in mind what's called the swift pair of messengers of samatha and vipassana, employed in the mindfulness and insight of the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, with mindfulness verging into samatha and samatha into jhana, and sampajanya verging into insight, vipassana, and vipassana maturing in wisdom. Part of the meditation practice is the recollection of all the arahants who achieved the sublime bliss of Nibbāna in the past. And now here you are, embarking on the same journey, doing the same things, which must give rise to the same fruits. This was the Buddha's promise. He said that this Dhamma leads one way and one way only, to Nibbāna. If you can get into the stream, it will sweep you all the way down to the sea. With those thoughts, let's begin with some meditation time. I'll ring the bell 1 time in the beginning and 3 times at the end. Returning home now to our Satipatthana practice. Establishing our basic meditation posture. Mindful of the body sitting, touch, seeing the body internally and externally, feeling the rise and fall of the breath. And with the breath, relaxing the body. calming the bodily sankharas. We're breathing out deeply as we calm the body, knowing that. As we breathe in deeply, knowing that. Our breath becomes more calm and shallow, just knowing it for what it is. Getting comfortable, relaxing. Sensitive to touch. Aware. At least aware that there's a body. With a reflective awareness. Self-reflective means we know we're aware. There's a sense of knowing. Giving ourselves a break is time of freedom. To just be wholly with the knowing. Unplugged from everything else. Knowing the touch of sound. Knowing hearing. Knowing the touch of the fingers. Knowing the touch of the breath. As they appear and disappear. Coming back to the body, into the body. Sensitive to whatever we're sensing. Contact, touch. Touch of sound. Touch of feeling. If there's room to, relaxing a little bit more with the breath. As we relax with the breath, knowing whether it's deep or fine and shallow. Just knowing whatever we can know about it. Not grasping at knowing, not seeking knowing, receptive knowing. Open, interested to know. You may be able to sense in the sensations of the body even. Whether there's a movement inclining to grasp something, whether you're coming back into center, letting go of the grasping tendency, relaxing, releasing, and with that, opening to deeper knowing. Receptive and interested. Notice what happens when you apply and direct your mind. Observe. Train yourself in that. Sense the different qualities of doing so. Whether coarse and heavy-handed, or more light, fluent, with a light but steady hand. Like gently and clearly in hand. Like you might hold a soft lotus in your open palms. Carefully turn it to be able to look at it more clearly. Not hard, just clear, steady, calm, and mindful. Not to crush it. Even if you inhale the fragrance, feel the touch, aware. Like this with our body, breath, sensing, looking into observation, the qualities of seeing and knowing. Notice we're using memory and imagination. If you've never held a lotus, you can hold a fully blossoming, soft and fully blossoming rose. Not bud, but fully blossoming. Held in front of your heart in open hands. Touch, smell, see, look carefully, feel carefully. Smell carefully. Our bodies are like this flower. Nibbānasantike. Can we imagine ourselves now sitting in the presence of arahants? Sitting together with the arahants. What do they look like? What does it feel like? In our bodies and hearts. How do we sense them? What is an arahant? Fully awakened one. Aware of our sankharas, our body, what we may be seeing, feeling in our sense of touch. And again, if there's something that's inclining outside, seeking, we can bring that back into ourselves to look, to see, and know. Did we ever have a sense in ourselves with any image of the Buddha? Any teacher? Just in our imagination? What is it to be awake? Buddho. Jnanamataya. Only the knowing. Abiding independent, not attached to anything in the world. fully aware. Nacha kinchiloke upadhyati. Welcome to bring to mind gratitude. Invite, welcome gratitude. It's good to have such time. It's said to be of enormous merit to even hear rumor of arahants and of Buddha in the world. To be able to hear the Dhamma, to contemplate the Dhamma for ourselves. To be able to give ourselves to the practice from which effects and fruits surely, naturally come for us. Just to be able to give ourselves to the practice that the path is still open and available in the world. Profound gratitude. What can we do to repay this blessing? How can we deeply enough express our gratitude? With that wish, with that dedication at heart. We put our hands in front of our hearts. Anjali. Namaskar.
Dhamma chaloka dipati sahampati Katanjali anadi harang ayachata Santita sata parajaka jatika Dese tu dhammam anukampimam bhajam.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. From Ajahn Brahm's old book, In the Presence of Nibbāna. This book is from more than 20 years ago. My earlier quote at the beginning of the meditation was from this. Ajahn said, part of the meditation practice is the recollection of all the arahants who achieved the sublime bliss of Nibbāna in the past. And now here you are, embarking on this same journey, doing the same things which must give rise to the same fruits. This was the Buddha's promise. He said that this Dhamma leads one way and one way only, to Nibbāna. If you can get into the stream, it will sweep you all the way down to the sea. As one lends an ear to the Dhamma, contemplating it and allowing it to sweep over the mind, like a beautiful breeze on a warm day, allowing it to soak in and to penetrate deep into the mind. It penetrates deeper than thought, deeper than the intellect, far deeper than the fault-finding mind, and far, far deeper than the familiar mind. The Dhamma penetrates into that part of the mind that one has yet to know, waiting there, waiting until, through the practice of meditation, one enters those very refined, beautiful, and subtle states of mind, where these seeds of the Dhamma are resting, waiting to bear fruit, waiting to give the bliss of enlightenment. Ajahn Brahm, in the presence of Nibbāna, from back 1999, nearly 25 years ago. So, in our contemplation of Nibbāna, it being the lunar anniversary of the Nibbāna of several hundreds of the Buddha's disciples today, this seems an appropriate topic. The arahantship of great disciple of the Buddha, Mahā Therī, the Parinibbāna of disciple of the Buddha, Mahapajapati Gotami, and 500 founding mothers of the Bhikkhuni Sangha. So, the Mahapajapati Gotami Therī Gata and Therī Apadana in light of Satipatthana. And I might bring in something from our previous year's winter retreat, contemplating and working with the 33 Nibbāna sermons. So I'd like to first look into one of the early verses of the Mahapajapati Gotami Therī Apadana, which is also known as the Maha Gotamī Therī Apadana. So we often say Mahapajapati for short, but when we look in the Tipitaka text, the Buddha himself and others are calling her Gotami. Mahapajapati might be an epithet, her rank, her station. The Buddha himself was called Gotama. He calls his foster mother and first Bhikkhuni, or senior-most Bhikkhuni of the Bhikkhuni Sangha, Gotami. Gotama, Gotami. Gotami is female form of Gotama. The Maha Gotamī Therī Apadana. I want to thank who is serving as tech support for us, requesting number 1, the Ayu Sankara verse slide. Hope you'll be able to see this also. So I'll begin by telling you a bit of the story. This is from the Gotamī Therī Apadana. Apadana is like a heroic biography or hero's biography. The Greeks use this as well. In Sanskrit, it's called Avadana. So it begins with then 1 week ago, the Magha full moon, and the Buddha's own, it says in the sutta, in the Parinibbāna sutta, relinquishment of his ayu sankharas. Ayu means life. Sankharas are conditions, formations, fabrications. Going to be looking at ayu sankharas. So then in the Gotami Therī Apadana, it says that Mahapajapati Gotami Therī then went alone for meditation. And then she somehow knew. Now, this is in the Pali text. Somehow she has a strange feeling. And then she realizes that the Buddha himself and other great disciples of the Buddha will be passing away. If we look at the same story as it's been recorded in the early Buddhist teachings, translated into Tibetan, translated into Chinese, the same story, then we learn that actually this is the time she has heard the Buddha announced to the Sangha on the Magha full moon that he would be passing away. His own Parinibbana was impending, that he would be passing away after 3 months. So 1 week ago, then this is one of the things that we were then celebrating or remembering, recollecting on the Uposatha. So according to the Tibetan translation, Chinese translation, then Mahapajapati Gotami knew this. She came to know this, whether because it was announced to the Sangha or she knew this in her meditation. And then the thought came to her that it's time for her to go. Many people have psychologized about this, and like a mother doesn't want their own children to pass away before them, but also, she entered monastic life quite late in life at age 80, and by then was 120, and could also just be feeling like, it's time. And also her own foster son has then also said he's going to be passing away then at the age of 80, is already quite elderly. Anyway, it said that she knew that it was time then. She understood and knew that it was time. And then we come to this verse, which I hope by now you'll be seeing on your screen from the Gotami Therī Apadana. So, this is verse 102, according to, at the bottom of the screen, CST means Chatta Sanghayana Tipitaka, which means the Burmese most recent council edition, which is also called VRI or Vipassana Research Edition. And I'm not using this one due to any favoritism between it and the Sri Lankan Buddha Jayanti version or a Thai version of the Tipitaka. It's just that this is very easily accessible and from years ago. And so I have it, and I've been contemplating it over time. So this is not to express any favoritism, just to let you know what verse 102 CST means at the bottom. So the verse goes, Paṭipatti sankharan osajitwana nibuting gaccheyang Lokanatena Anunyata Mahesina. So this is Mahapajapati Gotami then reflecting to herself in what she thinks and what she's deciding. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about this and look into it. Ayu Sankharas. In the beginning there, if you can see the first line, Ayu Sankhara is what we were just talking about. Also, the Buddha himself then consciously releasing or relinquishing, even at the time that he decided that he would realize Parinibbana. Now, in our Satipatthana practice, then this is very important, the calming of the sankharas. In the very beginning, with regards to Kalyānupasana, then this calming of the bodily sankharas. So how we get agitated, often we can see, if we look closely, is through attaching to things that we want to get or we want to get rid of. And then there's some kind of like tension and some kind or friction or this kind of thing. But this is the process of calming the bodily sankharas. So here I want to look at the word that's then preceding, where it says Ayu Sankhara, the sankharas of life. I say the conditions for life or life fabrications. Then the word just before that, patikacha. So this word is actually patikaroti, and we can find it also in another Indic form, maybe also in Sinhala, pratikara. So in ordinary terms, this means to counteract. So you could say this is like counteracting the Ayu Sankharas in a way. In ordinary terms, it means to counteract. In Pali, then the negative meaning of this word, this patikaroti or patikara, is actually revenge. So it means to act against something or to respond to something, to counteract, literally to counteract. So in negative terms, that means revenge or retribution for something that's happened. In positive terms, it means to repair, to make amends, requital and reward, reconciliation, to clear a debt, to bring to peace. So with regards to all life fabrications, or sankharas, which we experience when we're practicing mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the breath. Also, we experience when we're practicing mindfulness or anupasana, looking into feelings, looking into the mind, we experience it with them all. So it's like action, reaction, right? So this pratikara or patikacha that we see here with regards to the Ayu Sankharas, what kind of response is there? And again, we look at the positive side, to repair, to make amends, requital, reconciliation, to clear a debt, to bring to peace. It means also to give up on something and be able to leave it behind, be able to go beyond it. In medicine, it means a remedy or to give an antidote. In land, it means compensation by the government, to give revenue from the government for the landless, the dispossessed. In religious terms, it's a remedy for illusion, to counter ignorance and delusion through contemplation of Nirvana, Nibbāna, recollection of Nibbāna. Etang santang, etang panitang, yadidang, sabba sankhara samato, up to the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Nibbānang paramang sukhang, which means Nibbāna is the highest happiness. In Dhamma terms, pratikara means the karma that ends karma, to reverse karma. That karma that's not karma, particularly to undo that karma which leads to perpetual rebirth. It's always reactive, always against reacting. Get something more, get rid of, get rid of. There's reactivity to bring to peace. In Zen, Jhana Buddhism of the northern Buddhist traditions very much is made out of this Dhamma, that is acting without acting. I'll say, as I studied in Korea for some period of time, talked about hang mu hang or mu hang hang, which means, what is that? It means the action that's without karma. I mean, it means acting without acting, or karma without karma, right? Say acting without karma, doing without doing, or acting without making new karma. In our daily practice here, we find this in our mealtime chant. All of those here, you may know, you can join together with me if you know it. Patihankama nawancha vetanang na upate sami. Yataracha me pavisati. Anawacha tacha pasu viharochati. So, patisankha yoni so pindapatang patisewami. With proper discernment, I make use of alms food. We chant this before our meal in the monastery every day. These are the Buddha's own words, how he recommended that we contemplate. Iti puranancha vedanang patihankami. And so I will get rid of any old feelings, which are said to be the feelings of hunger, without producing any new feelings. So this is one example then of doing something that's an action that's meant to relieve pains that have already come to be, but in such a way that it's not creating new Vedana. In this case, means not creating new suffering, new imbalance, not doing that. So this is very important. Yataracha me bhavisati anawachatacha pasu viharo chati. And there will be support for me, being blameless and living comfortably at ease. Yeah, so this is something that we recite and contemplate every single day with the taking of nutriment in our monastic life practice. I'd like to now reflect back on slide 2, the Satipatthana refrain. The refrain from the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. Attikayotiwa panasa satipachupatita hoti yawadeva Jnanamataya Patisatimataya Anisito Chaviharati Nachakinchi Loke Upadhyati. And I'm just reading one of the translations that we've been using, or else mindfulness that there is a body is established in them, just enough for knowing and reflective awareness only, and they abide independent, not clinging to anything in the world. Jnanamataya. This word, also we have Buddhataya, for the sake of, to be resolved upon. This case means to be, for the sake of, to be resolved upon jnana, knowing. In my time in Thailand with Thai forest traditions, and very much was made of the jnana. We talked about the jnana, the knowing, the jnana, really like contemplating this, working with this for the sake of, to be resolved upon, to be actively dedicated to the knowing, the jnana. The awareness, awakening, this is Buddha. Also then a lot of the teachers were using Buddho as meditative word, like a mantra, but not only just to repeat and recite, but also to contemplate deeply the meaning, the recollection of the arahants, even with the breath, whilst breathing in, whilst breathing out, even like filling the whole body with this contemplation, the body internally, the body externally. We also find Bodhataya in the Yasodhara Teri Apadana. Yasodhara Teri Apadana being used similarly to how bodhicitta is contemporarily being used in Mahayana traditions. In this case, in the Pali text tradition, it's a dedication to Savaka Bodhi or Savaka Buddhahood, Buddhanubhuddhang, to be awakened after the awakened one. So that is the awakening of the disciples of the Buddha. Then Jnanamataya. So in Sanskrit, then the form is Jnana Matra. Jnana Matra is also something very old in the Vedas. I was talking about this last time. In terms of the Vedas, this Jnana Mataya or Jnana Matra is also something that's meant to empower the spiritual seeker with the knowledge to realize their inherent abilities for wisdom and realization. In Yogacara Buddhism also there's Viññapti Matra. Yogacara Buddhism is called also Chitta Matra. In terms of the doctrine of Viññapti Matra, enlightenment is the realization of the imaginary status of phenomena and the non-substantiality of the self and external objects. The aim is to get beyond the false superimpositions of deluded proliferations to directly experience reality as it truly is. Yatha Bhutang Jnana Dasanam. In the Pali text is Jnata Yatha Bhutang. Also in my time, I'd say with the Thai forest tradition, then this Yatha Bhutang Jnana Dasanam is really strongly emphasized, particularly around some of the teachers who I had the benefit to have time with, who a number of people believe to be arahants. They really focused on this part, this Jnanamataya part here, really going to that, the Yatha Bhutang, things that say like just as is. Even my own name, Tathālokā, then Yatha is like just like this, just as is means things just as they are. Yatha Bhutang, Jnana Dasanam, to see and know things as they actually are. In our slide here, again, we were just looking at the Yawadeva Jnanamataya, which is on the third line down. Then I want to look further to the Patisatimataya. At the level of popular folk religion, this is Pratishmriti. It's considered to be a Vija. Vija, in ordinary folks' spirituality and religion, is thought to be a magic power or a spell. A Vija, a charm, or magic power or a spell, or supernormal power. We're talking about Pratishmriti here, which is Patisati. Patisatimataya is what we're talking about here. This is in the refrain of the Satipatthana. In the Vedas, particular emphasis on a special knowledge, Pratishmriti, which is a pramana or sacred word, analogous with Vedic mantra, which had the potency of making things manifest and disclose their true nature. In the Rig Veda, Pratishmriti is a method of the rishis, as the sages. Noting the root meaning of mantra is to liberate the mind. So we think about mantra as words. Here we're using words. Also the meaning is to liberate the mind. Yes, these are instructions for this. Or mano, the mind, mano, to liberate from the view of self, which is manaditi. Matra, the essential feature of the 5 elements. Now we've been talking about the 4 great elemental properties. here. This is talking about 4 great elemental properties, but then it's expanded to 5. There's 4, 5, 6. Matra, essential feature of the 5 elements, endeavor personified. In the Rig Veda, you yourself are the invocation. In the Ayurveda, the blending knot of the matras. Samaveda, the song. The Artha Veda, the measure of time. Matra, you are the final goal. This is context. Pratishmriti, matraya, means, if we look at our screen, patisati mataya in Pali. Matraya, unto, to the embodiment of. It's in the dative singular form or the instrumental form denoting cause. This is meant to be something that's causal and effective. We find it in yoga also. And in this case, the directions are that this is for pratiloma. So this relates then also to what we see here as patikara or pratikara that we were just looking at before. Can we go back for just a moment to the first verse, Mahapajapati Gotami Therī, what she's saying about her intention, what she's doing. Let's see if we patikachayu sankaram. So that patikacha is pratikara. Okay. So here this is related to then pratiloma or patiloma. In the Buddha's teachings, this patiloma practice we find in paticca samuppada. Going upstream, going against the stream, reversing the cycle that leads from the cycle that causes and perpetuates ignorance and suffering. Turn back to what undoes the causes of and does not perpetuate ignorance and suffering. This is what we're talking about. Of Patiloma, it said, Nibbānang gaming paramang hitaya. Nibbāna gaming paramang hitaya. Do you recognize it from Ratana Sutta, the Jewels Discourse? Etena sachena suati hotu is there, even in the very basic amongst our 3 most common blessing chants. This Dhamma is there. Can we go back again? A Patiloma, it said, again, can you say it with me? Nibbāna gaming paramang hitaya etena sachena suati hotu. Let's look back then at Mahapajapati's. No, we're good where we are. Okay, can you make that larger? No? Oh, okay. I hope everyone can see it. So now I want to look at anisito. Where am I? I'm on line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anisito chaviharati. This is in the refrain. Mahasatipatthana Sutta refrain. Yes? Patisati mataya. Anisito chaviharati. Anisito. Sanskrit, anishraya. This is actually found in the oldest Buddhist text that exist, from Kandara in Kharoshthi. You know, we think the Pali texts are like the oldest, but in fact, the oldest that exist in the world. In Sri Lanka, it's said that the texts were recorded in the 1st century, where? At the Aluvihara. I visited that place in Sri Lanka on pilgrimage, but none of them exist now. There's nothing solid from that existing anymore that anyone knows about. You say passed down by oral traditions. But from this northwestern Indian area, from that 1st century time, actually there are birch bark. scrolls that have been found, the Bajor collection, found from that area where the birch bark scroll is that old. And then we find the Anishraya. This is related to the Anisito Chaviharati. We find this there amongst the world's oldest existent Buddhist texts from Gandhara. So some notes about this. Anishraya, that's Anisito Chaviharati, from the refrain of Satipatthana, does not perceive morality in terms of not relying on something. What does that mean? Specifically, nothing internal nor external, nor both internal and external. If you understand what anisito chaviharati means, if we look down in the translation, they abide independent, not clinging to anything in the world. Then you understand. Anishraya. Specifically, nothing internal nor external, nor both internal and external, for the purification of beings, it says. So I'd like to offer a comment. I'm interested in how the reliances and the attachments related to them are considered a kind of blemish or impurity. Here, purity is being related to freedom, not being hooked or dependent upon anything. Realizing this is always first a dependency of views, a bias of views, a distortion of views, and thus becomes a blemish of views. So it's an occlusion of the mind as well as an attachment. So when we're talking about anisito chaviharati, nacha kinchi loke upadhyati, then we're talking, and it's translated as abiding independent, not clinging to anything in the world. So in the definition of anishraya, then it's saying specifically not internal, not external, not both internal and external. We're talking about all these ayu sankharas, the sankharas that were calming, releasing, relaxing, opening, letting go. Can we go back to slide 1? So back to the Gotami Therī Apadana. Now, what she's saying here, then we look at the second line, Osa Jitwana Nibuting. Osa Jati, again, has a Vedic counterpart and is very, very important in the old Vedic teachings. I'm not even sure if I can pronounce it right, but I'm going to try. Avashrijati. Osajati, Avashrijati. In Sanskrit, Utshrijati means to evacuate. What's she talking about? Looking here, Osajitva Nibuting. Second line, this is Mahapajapati Gotami, means to evacuate, as commonly used in evacuating the bowels. This is the most common usage. And she's talking about ayu sankharas, means the life formations, life fabrications, turning this back, and then using a word that's most commonly used for evacuating, releasing the bowels. Oh my goodness. So I just want to say also, when I was in the northeast of Thailand, then the word for the restroom, then I was so surprised, because normally it's called the water closet or water room. But then in this case, it's called the Hongsuka, which means the happiness room. Because this is the place that you go to release your suffering from your stool, release your suffering from your urine. So northeastern Thai people call it, maybe you remember Ayya Brahmavara, I found so charming. That's why I looked up, where someplace looking for the restroom and then looking for the sign. And I'm used to like Hongnam sign, which means water closet or water room sign. But instead, then it was pointed to me while I'm asking, where's the restroom? I can read a little bit of Thai at that time that I could read. It says Hong Sukha. It means the happiness room. What? No, I mean the restroom. No, I don't even think about in English using restroom, like being for relaxing, right? We don't even think about it. We just use it. But in Thai, Hong Sukha, the happiness room. So for setting free, for sending off, in this case, we're back to the Osajati word again. Setting free, we're looking at Osajitwana Nibuting. Osajati. Setting free, sending off, giving out, bestowing. I have setting free here twice. Setting free. And then Patinisaka. Patinisaka, the relinquishment of all attachments. Returning to the natural state. Returning to nature. As in the Nibbāna sermons, which quite a few of us here and at our hermitage and some of those online joined for then our last 3 months winter retreat, then this is repeated in the great refrain from the Nibbāna sermons also over and over again. Sab upadi patinisago, the relinquishment of all attachments. Tanha kayo, virago, nirodho, nibbāna, the end of craving, the fading of obsessions, the cessation of suffering. Nibbāna. So, specifically in Sanskrit, we find this Osajitwana. Here we find it in the form Utsrijati, specifically used with regards to Ayusankaras. Specifically, I'm going to quote, Ayusankarang Utsrijati. Ayusankarang wa Utsrijati. So it's often used specifically with regards to these Ayusankaras, the sankaras that are, say, like the fabrication of life. Ayu is life. So whatever is the weaving, the texture, the fabric of life, you can say it's specifically mentioned in this regard. So also, Utsrijati is considered to be characteristic of the behavior of a true guru, part of the definition of what's considered to be the true guru, true spiritual teacher, true spiritual mentor, the behavior of the guru. Utsrijati in this case means to set free. And it also means pouring out of grace. So here for her, Osajitwana Nibuting, setting free and pouring out of grace. Anupasana and Satipatthana, when one sees one's mind is free. Chittanupasana, this is a very important part, essential part of the Chittanupasana, which is coming up. But of course, I know Ayya Brahmavada earlier on today, for those who joined or those who may watch later on the YouTube, already looking at like all 4 of the Satipatthanas. And really, they always come up with one another. You're trying to practice Kayanupasana and Vedana comes up, feelings come up, of course, and the mind becomes apparent, and you notice the mind is contracted, or the mind is fluent, or the mind is narrow, or the mind is broad, or you notice all of these things. You notice whether hindrances are present or not. So this setting free then, in terms of the Satipatthana, this osajitwana nibuting, then is very important with regards to the Chittanupasana, looking into the mind, mindfulness of mind. But we start to practice it, and it's important to practice even the level of the body. There are those who say you have one attachment come up in your mind, you're sticking on something against it, or you want it, that you can see in the body right away. If you're mindful of the body, you can see that imbalance in the body, or that friction in the body, that stress in the body come up straight away. So still looking at osajati, osajitwana nibuting. So this is also said to be a characteristic of the Tathāgata Gotra. What's that? Means when one practices like this, one is said to become a member of the family or the lineage of the Tathāgatas. Abiding in loving kindness, metta, or mayatri, all kusala mula, wholesome roots, become activated by this practice, by this. Go ahead and take down that slide. You can stop screen sharing for a moment. So I'd like to go on now with a Gotami Therī Apadana. Then the other bhikkhunis then felt something and noticed something. Those bhikkhunis who were dwelling together with Mahapajapati Gotami Therī, and they say to her, after she has made this announcement, oh, can we have the very first one again? Oh, actually, she made this announcement to them. She let them know this, what we've had on there. Okay, here we go. She says this here. The conditions for life, ayu sankara, releasing them, I would let them burn out. Let me go to the guide of the world. Here she's referring to the Buddha, to obtain the blessings of the great sage. So then the other bhikkhunis, then, okay, now you can let it go. The other bhikkhunis say to her, if it's pleasing to you, Aye, Nibbāna is the ultimate happiness. So I'm reading here from the Gotami Therī Apadana. We all too would enter final Nibbāna with the blessings of the Buddha, O devout one. They say to her, we set forth together both from home and from the rounds of becoming two. Let us go together to Nibbāna, the supreme state. And then the narrator here says, or maybe it's those who are finding out about it, Gotami is going to Nibbāna. Here she's called Gotami. Gotami is going to Nibbāna together with her 500 companions, like the 500 tributary rivers of the Ganges flow into the sea. Apparently, there were a lot of her students, their students locally, who then, hearing this announcement and finding out about it, say, "Oh, greatly fortunate ones, are you leaving us without a guide and protector?" This shows how important Mahapajapati Gotami, even the Buddha was still alive, but how important she and those, that great assembly of Arahant Bhikkhunis who were her companions, were to her. Are you leaving us without a guide and protector? Do not be dedicated yourself to final Nibbāna. They lamented and begged, don't leave us. To dispel their sorrow, Gotami spoke these sweet words. Enough of your crying, children. Today is a time for us to laugh. Now, time for the third slide. Dukkha has been thoroughly understood. Thank you kindly to our tech support. Parinyatang maya dukkhaṃ dukkha hetu vivajito nirodho me sachikato mago chapi subhavito. Now we're talking about Dhammanupasana here. In fact, she says, dukkha has been thoroughly understood. The cause of dukkha is abandoned. Cessation has been experienced by me for myself. The path has been well cultivated. So this is her response. Why was she being cruel when they were feeling grieved? And then she said, it's a time to laugh. She's explaining why she's thinking and feeling in this way. In the Therigatha, likewise, there are the almost shared verses between the Gotami, Mahapajapati Gotami Therī and the Mahapajapati Gotami Therī Apadana. In the Therigatha, it says almost the same. All suffering is fully understood. Craving, its cause, is dried up. The Eightfold Path has been developed, and cessation has been realized by me. In this case, this means cessation of suffering. This is like her lion's roar. She says, I have attended to the teacher. The Buddha's teaching has been fulfilled. I've laid down the heavy burden. The conduits of further becoming are unplugged. I would like to look into this verse more, but maybe at a later time. She says, the aim for which one goes forth from home life into homelessness, that aim has been attained by me. All bonds are completely destroyed. And then she goes on to say, if you truly have any love for me, this is speaking to those who have love and attachment for her and who don't want her to go. If you truly have any love for me, and if you have any gratitude, may you gather and strengthen yourselves and make a valiant effort for the continuation of the true Dhamma. The fully awakened one, the Sambuddha, at my request, established and offered women the going forth into monastic life. Therefore, just as what I have done has been of joy to you, may you continue and further my intention. May I have slide 4, see the disciples. Aradhavire pahitate nichang talha parakame sammake savake pahasa etang buddhanavantanam. See the disciples all together, putting forth energy, resolute, always with strong effort. This is homage to the Buddhas. Now, you might think that this is Mahapajapati Gotami speaking, but at this time, she's gone before the Buddha, in front of the Buddha and the Bhikkhu Sangha, together with the Bhikkhunis who are accompanying her, and she's announced her intention and received the blessings of the Buddha. Then there's a recollection of a time. This is called the story of the sneeze. There's a recollection of a time when the Buddha sneezed, and she wished him like Ayubhavan in Sinhala. But still, I think people in India also will say something like someone sneezes, then they wish them long life. Ayu, in this case, means the long life as a blessing. So the Buddha sneezed, and she, in her habit, having been his foster mother, then being in the assembly together, then wished him long life. But he said, a Buddha should not be blessed in this way. This is from the Gotami Therī Abhidhamma, and it appears in the other versions as well, this story of the sneeze. It's a very interesting counterpart to what we find about the story of Ananda in the Parinibbāna Sutta, where the Buddha is then thinking about relinquishing his ayusankharas, and then it said like Mara overtook the mind of Ananda, and so he didn't ask the Buddha to stay on for the rest of his ayukapa, which means ayukapa means the like full extent or long extent that a lifespan could possibly be, right? Some people say to stay on to have life as long as the entire kappa or eon. But here in this case, in the Gotami Therī Abhidhamma, Mahapajapati Gotami is recollecting when she then blessed the Buddha by wishing him long life. He sneezed, she blessed him, wishing him long life, and he said, a Buddha is not to be blessed in this way. It's very interesting. Sometimes I think like two texts are talking to each other, but it's got to be different people talking to each other, I think. So then Mahapajapati Gotami Therī asks, then in that gathering at that time, then how should a Buddha be blessed? And this is the Buddha's reply to her. In that moment, at that time, what we have on the screen here from the Gotami Therī Abhidhamma actually almost virtually identically also appears in the Therigatha. So from the Therigatha, then almost the same. Now I'm reading from Therigatha, you can compare with what you have on the screen, the Gotami Therī Abhidhamma. This is from Therigatha, Mahapajapati Gotami Therigatha. Aradha viriye pahitate nichang talha parakame sammage sawake pase esa buddhana vandanam. Almost the same. The last line is a little bit different. Etang buddhana vandanam, esa buddhana vandana. Energetic from the start and resolute, constantly making effort and unified. See these disciples. Now that's homage to the Buddha. The word of the Buddha, Buddha Vajana. This is the Buddha himself speaking to Mahapajapati Gotami. So I'd like to now offer a few minutes for Q&A, comments, Dhamma discussion before we wrap up for this evening.
Andamayam Dhammo Aragataya Garam Dharamase Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu.
Does anyone have any thoughts they would like to share? Any questions? Yes, thank you very much. Oh, and we can even look back. Would you mind to put it on the screen share again? I'm sorry. Thank you. We can take a look at it one more time for everyone else, and I'll read from what's here. See the disciples all together, putting forth energy, resolute, always with strong effort. This is homage to the Buddhas. So this is Paṭipatti Puja, isn't it? Yes, indeed. The Buddha himself is giving this direction and advice. Some people say Therigatha is later. Maybe it's like arising during the Ashokan period and afterwards, but they think Therigatha is earlier. Mahapajapati Gotami Therigatha, again, is virtually identical. As I read it to you, you can see the only difference that's there is just whether pasa or passe is seeing is in the locative tense or not, and then whether it says at the end esa buddhana vandana or whether it says at the end etang buddhana vandana. But actually in this case, it doesn't mean only homage or vandana, homage to the Buddha Gotama. It means homage to all Buddhas, buddhana vandana. In this case, yes? See, now that is homage to the Buddhas. Yeah, so very much in line with, this is part of what then inspired me to offer this extra special evening like this, because then also it said that even if we didn't meditate, even if we didn't contemplate the Dhamma, that when human beings gather together in harmony, it's already a great merit. There's a lot of not that happening. There's so much of not that happening. People are not in harmony internally with their own sanghas, and they're often not in harmony externally in their relationships with at least some people, if not several people, if not a whole number of people, if not with their ideas about various countries or like different groups of people or different kind of politics or all these kinds of things that we see expressed in the world. And then, not only all of the mental stress, but then all of the violence. And then all of the things that people do so dysfunctionally to try to escape from drugs and alcohol and distractions and, so many kinds of things that, may not be really helpful to themselves. I mean, they might be trying to help themselves, but it's like, maybe there's some help, but also comes with a lot of harm for themselves and also others. So it's said getting together in harmony is already an enormous merit for human beings. And if we add to that making effort with regards to the Satipatthana practice, it said even a moment of mindfulness is like so enormously meritorious. And then also to listen to the Dhamma, to contemplate the Dhamma, to discuss the Dhamma amongst what the Buddha said were the among the highest blessings. Thank you for asking. Does anyone else have a question or comment that they'd like to share? Now I'm able to see a number of you who are joining from afar on the screen. So I want to say greetings to everyone and thank you very much for joining. I couldn't see you before, so I'm delighted and happy to see you now. Welcome to put your hand up if you have a question or something that you'd like to share. Or anyone also here? I would rather talk about the deep Dhamma aspects, but I want to say that I know several people have asked, where did you get the idea that tonight, this half moon night, is Maha Gotami and these Bhikkhunis Parinibbana? Did you make that up yourself? Some asked. So I'll just mention very briefly about this. So we have in the Pali text canon, we're looking at excerpts from the Gotami Therī Apadana. This is from the 5th Nikaya of the Sutta Pitaka, from the Khuddaka Nikaya. So these early Buddhist teachings that we have in the Sutta Pitaka, as well as in the Vinaya Pitaka, then also have parallels in languages that are not Pali. So we find fragments in Sanskrit. We find also a number of suttas and sections of Vinaya, even the earliest ones that exist in physical form. Then also from the northwest of India, Gandhara region, from those birch bark scrolls that were like put into pots and buried and are being dug out. And then also translated from the 1st century, they began the big, it might have even been earlier, but the big translation process of the early Buddhist teachings into Chinese. And then later on, with Buddhism coming to Tibet, and then the Tibetan canon is enormous, contains so many early Buddhist teachings, sutta, quotations, also Abhidhamma, also Vinaya, and so much is there. So this is not talking about Mahayana teachings or Vajrayana teachings. This is talking specifically about the early Buddhist teachings as they've been recorded in different languages. I really appreciate the work of Venerable Analayo, Bhante Analayo, Bhante Sujato with Sutta Central in bringing together these different language renditions of the early Buddhist teachings. So even now also, I was just seeing like these new translations that are appearing in Italian with increased interest in Italia with our venerables traveling to Italy on Tudong. Brahmawada went on Charika a few months ago, and then also Italian Bhikkhuni Ayasoma, and then, others. We have Bhikkhuni Dhammadina, who is also a native Italian speaker. So for example, now there are more and more suttas that are being translated into Italian. So this is from, the early Buddhist teaching, and it's being translated into another language. And who knows in another how long, if anything will remain, if something remains, like to be able to find from the 1st century these Kandara scrolls like buried in the desert like this. So we're talking about from the early Buddhist teachings here. And so in the version of the Gotami Therī Abhidana, which we have in Pali, that was recorded in Chinese, I'll just say, so we have in the Sutta Pitaka Pali, we start with Digha Nikaya. Then also translated into Chinese, there's the Dirgha Agama. Agama means the transition, Nikaya means the collection. But Digha and Dirgha, it's just Pali and Sanskrit. That's also Digha Nikaya and Dirgha Agama. Also Majjhima Nikaya, the middle-length discourses of the Buddha, then Majjhima Agama. Samyutta Nikaya, connected discourses of the Buddha, and Samyukta Agama. Then Anguttara Nikaya, numerical discourses of the Buddha. There's the Ekotarika Agama. So in the Ekotarika Agama collection that was translated into Chinese then early on from the early Buddhist teachings, then there's also a version of this. This version says specifically, in its version, the Chinese translation of the Gotami Therī Abhidana that tells this story of her Parinibbāna, it says explicitly that she heard or knew then about the Buddha's announcement. The Buddha made his announcement, which we in the Theravada traditions relate to the Magha full moon that just passed 1 week ago. And then she made her decision at that time. There's another version quite similar that was recorded also in both Chinese and in Tibetan. So then reading this one that was another version recorded in both Chinese and Tibetan is also very similar. This one mentions explicitly then, from learning this news from the time of our first verse that we were looking at here, then Mahapajapati Gotami Therī teaches for 7 days straight. Her final teachings. And then on the 8th day, which is called the Atthāmī or Atthāmī Uposatha, which means it's the half moon Uposatha. In this case, means the Krishna Paksha Uposatha, but Ashtami means that when the moon is waning, not getting fuller, but it says specifically it's the waning moon. Waxing moon is getting brighter, waning moon is getting darker. So this means 1 week after the full moon. So it mentions specifically, then she then taught for 7 days, final teaching, and then she and the group of bhikkhunis, who, according to her Apadana story, it gets into like the past lives, and she had like past life merits with all of them from long, long ago, which is part of the reason why then when the Buddha returned to his hometown and taught, then they wanted to listen. They gathered together to listen, and they experienced stream entry and stream winning, stages of awakening upon listening. And then further, later on, why when Maha Gotami, Mahapajapati Gotami, then wanted to go forth into monastic life, they wanted to go also. Yeah, so this is called having karma with one another. Some serious karma with one another. People experience this all the time with their spouses, with their friends, with their children, with their associates in monastic life. They realize at some point we have karma with one another. But what are we going to do with that karma? Here, the very first verse that we're looking at is the patikaroti, right? How to turn that back, not in the negative way. We're not talking about striking out. We're not talking about revenge, retribution. We're talking about reconciliation and bringing peace and freedom. So they went in this direction together. For them, then becoming arahants not long after they went forth, then when she started thinking in this way, it's said, according to the Gotami Therī Apadana, they felt something, they knew something. When she had gone into meditation, was thinking this, so they asked her, what's going on? And then I read through, what's here? Then they said, for them, for her hundreds of bhikkhuni companions who she had this karma with, I read to you what they said. They were not crying, they're arahants. They were saying Nibbāna is the highest peace, Nibbāna is the highest happiness, right? This is like, yes, let's go. It's time. So then they went to ananyuta, means also to ask permission or to ask blessings. So this is a tradition for the arahants when they felt that it's time to pass away, when the Buddha was still alive, that they would go and ask the Buddha's permission, ask the Buddha's forgiveness, request the Buddha's blessings. And so Mahapajapati Gotami and all of them then did this. And there's more. There's, the Buddha says, wanting her to perform miracles. In all the versions, these things are in common. Some differences there with regards to the content of the miracles. Like, is it the miracle where there's the having fire coming out of the body on one side and water coming out in the other? In one of the texts, yes, simultaneously, which is in another tradition, they said only the Buddha can do it. Disciples can't do it. But in one of the texts, then Mahapajapati Gotami Therī is doing it too. And as the Buddha did also later, then like going into the jhanas and out of the jhanas before entering Parinibbāna. So they're very, very similar. So then there are the texts that then say specifically the Buddha's announcement, coming to know about that final 7 days teaching, then the 8th day. That's today. That's this half moon. So I wanted to mention this because I know there were those who were doubting and wondering about this. And and someone asking like, is it Mahayana? And this kind of thing. And just to let you know, it comes from the what's called the Sāvakayana teachings, not the Mahayana or the Tantrayana or Vajrayana teachings, but the Sāvakayana means belonging to the disciples' vehicle, which we also call the early Buddhist teachings. We call Therīya or Theravada, which means the early Buddhist teachings, right? So it comes from this strata. So those canons, Chinese canon and Tibetan canon, also contain Mahayana teachings, or the Tibetan canon also contains Tantrayana or Vajrayana teachings, but they're not the same thing. They're not mixed together. These agamas, as I mentioned, the Ekotara agama or Majjhima agama or Dirgha agama, Samyukta agama, like this, they're parallels and identical or almost identical, almost all. Even I've been finding interest in the comparative studies of Satipatthana for Venerable Analayo, for all who are following Venerable Analayo's talks, teaching, excellent books on this topic. Then he's done really like in-depth comparative research between the early Buddhist teachings, versions. So he's not going into Mahayana for anything. That's something separate. That's something different. It's just which language, the various languages that the early Buddhist teachings were preserved in, even also in Gandhari, which means Kharoshti. It's just this language, yes? So the early sutta, also Vinaya teachings preserved in these various languages, as we now have translations also into English. And we have translations into Sinhala, we have translations into Thai, we have translations into Italian, we have translations into Hindi, we have translations into so many various languages now. So this is just the translations. And of course, it may vary a little bit by bit. Which original do we start with? I hope that answers the question that I know several people had. And I want to check now. Here, online, more questions or something to share? Our tech support has allowed me to see all of you again, or at least some of you. So happy to see you. Please put up your hand if you have something that you would like to share or to ask, and then we'll wrap up. I'm not seeing any hands online. I hope it's not because I frightened you. I try to.
Thank you very much for sharing these teachings. They're not that easy to find. When I try using Sutta Central to find some of the citations you give, it doesn't automatically come up. So I know it's the researcher doesn't have the skill or the knowledge. But while I'm here, I'll learn how. But thank you so very much.
Well, thank you for your kind words. And one of the reasons that I created slides for this one was so for the main quotes that we were looking at, if you'd like, you're going to be able to go back to the YouTube and see it right there on the screen, available for you. And if there's anything that I was mentioning, that I hope you're able to hear me. I forgot to turn the mic back towards myself. Were you able to hear just before this? Nodding, okay. Huh? Someone shaking? Some nodding, some head shaking. Mudita is head shaking. So I just wanted to say that this is one of the reasons why for this particular talk, I made slides for the main quotes that I was talking about. So that you would be able to go to the YouTube if you'd like to see them again afterwards and be able to see that screen share right there to be able to find it. And if anyone would like further beyond that, I don't want to encourage you to disturb our retreat managers, but I have the sense sometimes that also like they're not minding so much when it's about Dhamma, and someone is wanting to follow up with regards to the Dhamma. So do you have anything to say about that, Ayya Brahmawara?
Yeah, just that people are very welcome if they have questions, of course, no problem.
And I can share. I like to just be impromptu and just share what I've learned, just live directly from the heart. But because I know it can be really valuable to be able to connect and follow up and be able to have the resources, so I can share this with our retreat managers if anyone wants to see even closer what's there. So I was thinking compassionately about this very thing, which is why I prepared it in the way that I did. So if anyone wants to be able to access what was here and get the links, but I would say for this, be sure to do that within the next week, because all things being impermanent, we don't know. But 1 week from now, then for the new moon Uposatha, then we'll be beginning with Vedananupasana, looking into feelings. And after that, I'm going to be going into the silent, secluded, intensive personal retreat time for the next month. After that, at least that's the plan. So for the following Uposatha after that, for Chittanupasana, then Sayadaw Ujagra, who has taught with our community, both in person and only in person before, not online. But he's kindly offered to fill in for me during my retreat time as our guest teacher. And he's been such a dedicated Satipatthana student of Satipatthana, we'll say, and sharing on Satipatthana in the Dhamma talk and retreat contexts even around the world. So it's really a great boon. I appreciate him accepting my invitation to fill in for me during my retreat time. And then I might be back again towards the end for the last couple of weeks of our winter retreat. So I just wanted to, I'll let you know again later, but I wanted to let you know for Chittanupasana, for anyone who might say, but I want our Bhikkhuni's teachings on Chittanupasana. Brahmavada is also going to be teaching on that topic, we hope, during this time. And there are recorded teachings from, we practiced with Chittanupasana for a whole Vasa. And so from myself and also from Ayasobana, in case anyone would like to go back, our tech support has very kindly got the playlist well in order for the Chittanupasana 3 months of teachings on our Dhammadrini Monastery YouTube page. Oh, Sheila has her hand raised. Sheila, yes, please.
Good evening, Aya. This has been so inspiring.
Good evening, Sheila.
This has been just so beautiful. I am wondering, is there available for reading the version, the Gotami Therī Apadana? It was very inspiring to see the reading and translation. So I was wondering if there is a text of that collection of her teachings.
There is. And the text is available in Pali in several different versions. And then also we have full English translations from Jonathan Walters, which is available freely online, and I think also on the Sutta Central. And then K.R. Norman also did a translation for the Pali Text Society, which we don't have available freely online, but we do have in book form here. And I think it's the K.R. Norman translation, though, that United Theravada Bhikkhuni Sangha International, UTBSI, then put online with Jessica Sankamita did like a cartoon of the entire Gotami Therī Apadana with the English translation of K.R. Norman, which is then also available online on the UTBSI as United Theravada Bhikkhuni Sangha International website from this time last year. So this is that was a big and beautiful project that was offered right at this time, this 7-day or 8-day period last year. So you can find that freely available on the UTBSI, United Theravada Bhikkhuni Sangha International YouTube channel. So I hope that's helpful, and I can share with Aya Brahmawada in case you write to our retreat managers, in case anybody writes about it, then I can share this. So she'd easily, without much work for her, be able to share that with you. Ruhanti, yes.
Good evening, Aya.
Everyone Saranai.
Everyone Saranai. So I have 2 words to describe tonight's program. Very powerful. With the presentation, the moment of Arahat Therī, Mahapajapati Gotami's Sankara, that moment came into life. So very powerful. Those are the 2 words I could best describe tonight. The feelings in my heart. So my wish.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So I want to.
I rejoice. My heart rejoices to hear that.
So
me too.
So the goodness that we all gathered here today, I want to offer it as an offering to Arahat Therī, Mahapajapati Gotami, and immense gratitude to you as well. Thank you so much, everyone.
Sadhu, 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 anumodami. Udhu saranai. So I'd like to invite now. I'm looking, but I think Ruanti's. I'm seeing Ruanti. Huh? Aha, okay. Checking. Can you check if there's anyone else's hand raised? Otherwise, I have one, or my second to last puja verse slide to share. Thank you so much to our tech support. So now I'd like to invite everyone here who would like to join in together. If our mindfulness has gone anywhere else, then let us bring our mindfulness to the fore, collect and gather our mindfulness and attention. I'd like to invite everyone who would like to unmute during this time. You're welcome to, and I'd like to invite all those here to repeat after me. You're able to see the text beforehand. If you are, then I hope you can know whether you feel comfortable to repeat this after me or not. I'd like to invite everyone who wishes to join in reciting this offering together. And if you'd just like to put your palms before your heart and join in together in this way, then really it's our minds and hearts that are most important in this. Maybe our tech support unmuted. This is how our intentions echo. Like a drop of water rippling out like this. Oh, it's true. It's, the technology can hide it from us, but then this is what This is how it is, what it is. So now, if you would like to join in, think about your mind, heart, your body, your speech and mind, your kaya kamma, vacha kamma, and mano kamma, being united and active in this dedication together. Welcome to repeat after me if you'd like to. We offer this meditation
We offer
this meditation
and Dhamma teaching
and Dhamma teaching
in the presence of Nibbāna,
in the presence of Nibbāna,
in honor of Great Arahat
in honor of Great Arahat
Mahapajapati Gotami,
Mahapajapati Gotami,
together with her Bhikkhuni assembly
together with the Bhikkhuni assembly
of 500 Mahā Theris,
of 500 Mahā Theris,
in remembrance of their final Nibbāna.
in remembrance of their final Nibbāna,
Dedicating ourselves
dedicating ourselves
to the practice.
to the practice.
Parinibbana gaming,
Parinibbana Gami,
Maha
arahanti,
Maha
Arahanti,
Mahapajapati
Mahapajapati
Gotami
Gotami Therī,
Pancha Sata Bhikkhuni
Bhikkhuni,
Parivara
Nibbāna,
Mahā Therī
Mahā Therī,
Pujami. This is a way that we can offer. We used our words, but I invite you to think about recognizing using the body, the speech, also the mind and heart. So it's said also in the Mangala Sutta, Puja cha pujaniyanang, eta mangala mutamang. Honoring those worthy of honor. These are the highest blessings. Now, finally, Kinang Puranang, our final slide. Welcome to turn off your mic now, and you can join us in chanting the Kinang Puranang. And for everyone who has their chanting book here, now is the time to open it if you would like to use your chanting book. We invite everyone else to join in the chanting if you would like to, with your mic turned off. And all the monastic community here together, you're all invited to have your voice turned on. Kinang Puranang Nawang Nati Sambhawang Virata Cittaya Tike Bhavasmin Te Kinapija Aviruli Chanta Nibbānasantike Yatayang Paṭippo Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sajjena Suati Hotram. With the old karma destroyed and no new arising, the mind is unattached to future birth. The seeds destroyed, the desire for becoming does not grow. These wise ones go out, even as this lamp is extinguished. In the Sangha, is this precious jewel. By the utterance of this truth, may there be well-being, happiness. May we have success in the path of practice. May we apply ourselves well and experience the fruits of the path for ourselves. I'd like to think about sharing the blessings with all of our Kalyanamittas, all of those who have been benefactors to us, all who have been our supporters, whether helping us out physically, whether through good words, whether through their hearts and just good glances, moral support, heart support, spiritual support to us, those who have been our teachers, guides, preceptors, mentors, those who are luminaries like the sun, the moon, the stars for us, luminaries in virtue, showing us the path, all of our Dhamma friends, all those who have passed down and shared the Dhamma teaching and path of practice with us. And then also all those from whom we've received life, our Ayu Sankaras, our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents back through 7 generations, all those who are able to receive our blessings, our guardian angels, Dhamma projectors, benefactors, all the beings in this area and within the vicinity of all of those who are gathered and joining together, may all receive the blessings of our lives. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Now, I would now like to conclude this special half moon Uposatha, Atthāmī Uposatha offering Nibbānasantike in the presence of Nibbāna, with meditation and Dhamma teaching offered as Paṭipatti, puja to the arahants, our great Kalyanamittas and benefactors, especially to Maha, the great disciple of the Buddha who realized awakening on this moon day, and also to Mahapajapati Gotami Therī, mother, foster mother, nurse mother of the Buddha, and then also great founding mother, helping, supporting, fulfilling the Buddha's intention in his sasana, and also her own heart's most noble intention awakened in the Dhamma and path, and its final fruition in her Parinibbāna, together with her great number of the Buddha's disciples and companions, our founding foremothers in Buddhism, offered with honor, love, reverence to all of them, and with the dedication that Mahā Gotami herself mentioned to us, if we love her, if we revere and honor her, to follow in her footsteps in doing the work of the path, that we may also say for ourselves with regards to the Four Noble Truths that suffering has been understood, its causes have been uprooted and abandoned. The path has been cultivated, and the cessation of suffering has been experienced by us for ourselves. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now I'd like to pay my homage to the Triple Gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. I invite all the Sangha to join me in the chanting. If you can see the image of the Buddha, please look towards it or face towards it. I just have the image of the Buddha in my mind and heart. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantam Abhivadin Buddhominato Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang namasami. Dhammo menato. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang namami. Sangho menato. May we practice well.